If you woke up tomorrow and a miracle happened so that you had a thriving, passionate marriage, what would you see differently? What would be the first signs that a miracle had occurred?
Welcome to the Only You Forever podcast. If you want to build a thriving, passionate marriage, we've got the research, the truth, and the answers you've been looking for. And now, here are your hosts, Caleb and Verlinda Simone Gendel.
Hey everybody, this is episode number 28. We're going to be talking about a very unique question for you to try out on your spouse. In fact, I just asked it.
Yeah, but I have a question about your question.
Yes.
Does that mean that we all have terrible marriages and we need a miracle to transform them?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, you might.
I do.
What?
No. So
we just got back from celebrating our 50th anniversary and we had such a great time and we feel so much closer now.
and we're getting along really, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so...
Yeah, this has been a great episode so far.
Okay, we're getting our brains back on track from vacation too. Okay, so here's the deal, Verlinda. This is a question used in what's called solution-focused therapy. And this is kind of like their linchpin question. And all they're really trying to do is ask the person to define a small shift and to look at, or to create a small shift by looking at how things would look differently on the other side of their problem and then coming back through from that side. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So in this question, when I asked that question in our introduction, I'm making the assumption that we all can build more into our marriages.
Yeah.
So we're not necessarily needing to assume that there's a problem. So that answers that part. But when we think about, like, if I was to ask myself the question, okay, for where my marriage is today, which I think is in a pretty good place, if I was to wake up tomorrow morning and something miraculous had happened and it was even better, what would be different?
What would that look like?
Yes. And, I think about that. That's a good question. You can really stop and kind of mull that one over and you say, okay, now what can I do to be part of what changed there?
How can I get there?
Yeah. Now you're coming up with some action items for your marriage.
Yeah.
So even if, like, this is an awesome question, you can use this question at work. If you got some issue at work with a piece of software or with whatever kind of a business problem, business relationship, whatever it might be, ask this miracle question. So let's go over it.
Okay.
Are we good?
Walk me through it. Yep.
Okay. So the quick version is pretty much what I used. If you woke up tomorrow and a miracle happens so that and then you insert something here, like, so that you no longer easily lost your temper, comma, what would you see differently?
Glad you put that comma in there.
Thanks. It's critical. Because actually, well, here's the thing, Verlinda, and we're going to talk about how you ask this question. You have to use the pause, and you have to be really good with silence in this question. So the speed at which you ask these words and the way you inflect your voice, it's all part of this intervention that they use in the therapy. It's not rocket science. It's just good common sense.
So you're not asking this question to yourself. You're actually asking it out loud to your spouse.
You're asking this out loud to your spouse, and you're asking it in a moment when, there's some vulnerability there and there's some willingness to change and they're motivated and they're in a calm, safe place with you. And you're asking this question. And then, so if you woke up tomorrow and a miracle happened so that you were no longer frustrated with Sally, your daughter, what would you see differently? What would the first signs be that a miracle occurred? And then you pause and you just let them do their work.
Let them think it through.
Yeah. So that's the short version of the question. So there's a longer version of the question here too.
Okay.
It goes like this. I'm going to ask you a rather strange question. The strange question is this, and note the pauses I'm doing are deliberate. After we talk, you kind of get back to what you're doing here at home, or you're going to go back to work, or you're going to go back to school, and you'll do whatever you need to do for the rest of today, such as taking care of the children or cooking dinner or watching TV, giving the children a bath, whatever that might be, and so on. And it'll be time to bed, time to go to bed. And everybody in your household is quiet. So you see, I'm kind of painting a picture here. And you are sleeping in peace. And in the middle of the night, a miracle happens, and the problem we're discussing right now is solved. But because this happens while you're sleeping, you have no way of knowing that there was an overnight miracle that solved the problem. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, what might be the small change that will make you say to yourself, wow, something must have happened. The problem is gone. That's all kind of like woo-woo, eh? Yeah. That's good stuff. So what's the point? The point is that this breaks you out of your box, and it takes away all sort of the big drama. but you're creating this creative situation, and it inspires that creativity in your spouse and helps them to see that there are steps that they can take to start to shift their own circumstances. So sometimes we're faced with a spouse that feels really, really stuck.
Like a victim of their circumstances.
Maybe a victim, or they're not even a victim. They just feel stuck and they can't find a way out.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how powerless you can feel as a spouse when you're helping your spouse with that, and you wish you could do something for them. Well, this is one thing you can try. Help them start to shift their circumstances. You can use this at work. You can use this with your kids.
So this question is basically just making you think in your mind what it would look like without this problem. And when I can envision that, then I can kind of work back to how do I get there? Because where I'm at right now is not going to get me there.
All you can see is sort of the big cloud. You can't see the other side of the cloud. If you could see the other side if you could stand on the other side of the cloud and look back, you could see how you came through it.
Right. So you almost need to put yourself outside of this cloud.
Yes.
And then figure out how you can.
But I think it does another thing, Verlinda. It triggers hope.
That's good.
Yeah. Which is powerful.
Yeah. Huh. So this really, is this a question that we'd use all the time?
No.
No, this is like for big, stuck issues.
You're going to kind of save this one. Yep.
So, honesty here. Do you think about this?
What?
Like, I've never heard this question before.
I've never tried it on you.
Well, maybe you have, and I just didn't know it. No, I've never heard this question before. But do you think about this in your head? Like,
think about what, Verlinda, the question?
Yeah, the question and what the solution looks like. You know, you're very much a come up with solutions kind of guy.
I am. And I think there's a little bit of a balance there, because we're often exhorting the husbands in our listening audience not to be problem solvers, but first to understand, right?
Yeah.
But, there are times when I go around that and I say, okay, give me a solution. What would look differently? Well, how would this feel better? And let's go back from there. So I don't use this very often, but I know I have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that would like break you out of your box.
Yep. Exactly. And
I like my box.
Well, sometimes we get stuck in our boxes, and that's where I think this becomes powerful. So this is not for everybody in every situation, but there are some situations in life where this can really help a person to shift.
Yeah.
Help our spouse to shift. And sometimes we just need to be there and help them get that little bit of perspective on life, don't we?
That's good.
Okay. So just closing points, you have to ask this well, and you have to ask it really slow. When I say well, I mean sincerely, and slow means like you're deliberate in your words. Take the audio that you've written, we'll write it out in the show notes, copy it down, write it down, whatever you need to do, copy and paste it into some note file that you have so you can keep this one. And you have to wait silently for the answer. So your silence is as much a part of the intervention as your question.
Okay. Not like come up with a solution for them and...
No, 5 options and what about this or that? Because that's just your anxiety running amok through your spouse's dilemma, right? And that's not helpful. That can be hard for us to have that silence sometimes.
More hard for me than you. That's good.
Okay. So that's just a quick one for today. We're back from holidays. We'll be back in the saddle here. Give you some great content in the coming weeks that we're looking forward to sharing with you.
It's good to come back refreshed and ready to go.
Yes, ma'am. So that's all for today's episode. You can get the full show notes at oyf.link/28. Remember, we're here to help build thriving, passionate marriages. So if this was helpful to you, we'd love it if you could help us spread the word and share this with others who would also be blessed by it.
Yep. Thanks, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to the onlyyouforever.com podcast. Please help us reach and influence a wider audience by rating and reviewing our podcast at onlyyouforever.com/love. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
So there's this one question that is the center point of solution-focused therapy, which is a whole model of therapy, and it all boils down to this one question. I thought, why not share that with our listeners? Because this is something you can use in your marriage. Okay, we're live. I am doing the intro.
That's good, because I don't really get it.
Oh,
hey, what's up? Well, that's the miracle question. I was just asking, what's up? Because in this episode, we're going to talk about the miracle question. Squirrel. I'm all ears.
Shh.